Your first question comes to the line of Mary Knapp, and their line is open for you now.
I was kind of wondering on the drought outlook where they've got improving conditions in Kansas, which we would really like, but when you couple that with above normal temperatures and equal chances on the moisture, except for the extreme eastern part, I'm kind of wondering where they're getting improved conditions.
That is a good question, Mary. I can think perhaps they're taking into consideration. This map actually just came out today. There is the anticipation of a significant snow event to impact much of Kansas, and I believe anywhere from a half to maybe perhaps 1 inch of water equivalent. So maybe a very short-term relief sort of scenario because the longer outlooks don't really indicate that improvement.
Yeah.
One thing to mention, this is Doug Cluck from NOAA. One thing we need to mention on those drought outlooks is that they may call for improvement, but if you're in D4 and you go to D3, which is from exceptional to severe or something like that, you're still in a pretty bad drought, and that's all it's calling for. It's not really calling for an amelioration of the drought. It doesn't mean the drought's going to go away, okay? So it's calling for some improvement, and this time of year for the next 3 months is about our rainiest time of the year for this region. So if we got normal precipitation, we would expect some improvement, right?
If we got the normal moisture, yes, we would expect some improvement, especially by the time you get to June. If you have normal for April, May time frame, that would be the case. But again, that's assuming, when you've got those higher temperatures to offset normal precipitation, it's just kind of like interesting that they have that improvement there.
Right. I won't disagree.
With that map, is there an assessment or on the rationale on why they show that improvement or the potential for improvement?
There may be more discussion on that webpage if you go to the drought outlook and the discussion.
Yeah, I looked at that, and there isn't anything of the discussion behind it in that. And again, when you look at the 6 to 10 day, 8 to 14 day outlooks for Kansas, they're both for below normal precip, and you look at the April outlook and it's neutral, and you don't start seeing any positive stuff creeping in except in eastern Kansas when you go out to the April, May, June, kind of like, yeah. If there's any improvement, it's going to be real slow.
Right. So we can be hopeful.
Our next question comes from the line of Terry Fleck, and their line is open for you now.
Thank you very much. This question has to do with the Canadian snowpack as it relates to western Alberta eastern Alberta and western Saskatchewan. Is that considered when we talk about inflows from tributaries and rivers such as the Milk on the Missouri River system?
I believe that it is for those that flow back or that flow out of the U.S., yeah. You're talking about the national map?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think, can we bring that back up, Pat?
Yeah. Do you want to look at the snowfall map or?
Well, my question has to do with when you start talking about river flows. There's a tremendous snowpack in the Canadian in the Canadian provinces north of Montana and in North Dakota, as you probably know. And my question has to do with those snowpack, like the Milk River, for example, is in, out, back in, and some of the other tributaries come into the United States from Canada. I do a lot of hunting up there, and I'm just wondering if that's if those numbers, I never see them on the map, so I see them here. But I'm just wondering if that's included in the river flow projections.
Yeah. So I do believe that we do monitor those. Yeah.
Well, Doug, I read that discussion that for that outlook for the flood potential that included northeastern Montana, and it would make sense that obviously they should consider what's going on to the north and across the border. But I think they only mentioned the heavy snowpack in northeast Montana.
Now, actually, if you look at the U.S. spring flood risk map, I guess you didn't put that in. Is that right, Pat?
I think it showed moderate. But
so, of course, we only go to the border. But I would expect that over the border it certainly would be the same situation to the north. Obviously, you know about the snowpack up there. And yes, it is taken into account in the hydrologic models that we run.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You bet.
Our next question comes from the line of Ken Shearinga, and their line is open.
Thank you. I'm sitting over here in Indiana listening to the drought discussion. You know, of course, in 2012, that drought extended from the Great Plains, and it did include a lot of Indiana. About a month ago, there was a statement made that the Midwest would have a repeat of the drought of 2012. That got the Indiana news media in a real frenzy. And I'm thinking, according to the new outlook that you have here, that really should be quieted down, right? Because the drought is actually shrinking this year from what I can see rather than expanding back into our area. I guess I just wanted to make sure that whenever any statements are made about the Midwest, that maybe they need to clarify what portion of the Midwest, because Hoosiers over here think that Midwest includes us. And so there's some confusion about that. So I think just a comment I guess I would make is that if there's some statements made about where the drought is located, that it be rather specific so our news media doesn't start calling me.
Right. Ken, you made I've heard the same thing for Missouri. At least a lot of talks I've given, there's this perception that we have the historic drought last year, and we're going to get another one this year for the growing season. And basically what I have found, and I think it's probably safe to say for many other states, that what happened last year when it comes to agriculture and crops, what happened last year during the growing season really has no bearing on what's going to happen this year. When we look at some of the growing season statistics, at least for Missouri, when you look at what happened one year and then versus what happened the following or even before that, it can be extremely variable. It can go from one extreme to another over a very short period of time, from extreme wetness to extreme dryness from one growing season to the next.
Yeah, that's basically true, Pat and Ken. And I think, the Midwest, in some people's minds, it stretches from Ohio to Colorado. So it really is sort of dependent. I believe that those comments were really based from Iowa West, and not meant for Indiana where you're quite wet.
I guess I would just say then if any future comments come out that we should be rather specific on what states we're talking about so that the media does not make that assumption again.
Yeah, I would hope that would be the case, yeah.
Our next question. Sorry?
I was going to say one other thing about past drought and current drought is that this is Doug again from NOAA, is that there is memory in the system in terms of soil moisture, and especially in the West, where those soil moisture lack of soil moisture really has to be made up in many ways before the whole system can recover. We see that year in and year out on the Missouri. Doesn't mean it can't, with one very large precipitation event, doesn't mean it can't change pretty quickly, but generally there's a lot of memory in the system, so it takes a while, especially in drier climates, for drought to go away. I guess that's the only comment I'll make.
Our next question comes from the line of Rick Kelsch. Their line is open.
I'd like to maybe thank the organizers who've been putting these on monthly. It's been very informative from a number of perspectives. One of the things, I always come at this from an agricultural perspective, and so it's been interesting to learn about the tools and the products you have that kind of define current situation and that provide some look into the future. My question is, how well is our agricultural community interfacing with the meteorology folks to look at how these tools that you've been sharing are being used in recommending future actions? I'll just leave it at that. Is that discussion occurring on a regular basis? Is that a discussion that needs to occur?
That's a great question for you, Pat.
Well, I'll speak on behalf of Missouri. Is that okay? And then, Doug, maybe you can talk about the whole central region. But I have working with Extension, I have many opportunities. The group I interact most with is agriculture. because weather has so much impact on agriculture. And I try to use a lot of the slides I've shown today, the tools out there, what's available, resources available in regard to making management decisions using climate information to make those decisions. I show a lot of information, and I share that with producers, with certified crop consultants, with folks with NRCF, FSA, so on and so forth. So I've had a great opportunity or platform that presented to me, being with Extension, to go out state and interact with a lot of the ag folks in the community, as well as with the field days that we have with various research firms across the state.
And just to follow up with that, I'm guessing there are a number of state climatologists on this phone call. I'm guessing. I'm also guessing that the regional climate centers, the Midwestern Regional Climate Center and the High Plains Regional Climate Center are on this call, and numerous others who we interact with on a consistent basis that do sort of bring that information beyond sort of the federal walls here, right? So there are also local weather forecast offices across the region that do they don't do agricultural weather, but they have all of these tools available to them, and share that widely. So yes, the communications can still be better. There's no doubt. But this webinar series that we're doing is sort of an evolving process in terms of how we share this information, especially in critical times where things get really dry or things get really wet. Okay, those seem to be the two big issues or big interest issues. So we're going to continue to do this at least monthly for the time being, and hopefully attract more people to the calls. So, and thank you, by the way, for your comments.
And maybe just one follow-up comment here, and this is not a criticism of what you folks are doing, but at this point in time, I don't see my peers that are advising, educating ranchers or producers, crop producers, using these kind of tools in helping make decisions for this spring. And to me, it seems like there's a real need to move these tools from not only from just the meteorology community into the crop consultants, the range consultants, to
Rick,
make some of these decisions.
Yeah, maybe after the call, Rick, you and I or someone can exchange emails, or at least a call or two, and see how we, talk a little bit more about how we might do that, especially in your region.
And who am I visiting with?
I'm sorry, this is Doug Cluck at NOAA.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
This is John Eyes at Central Region Headquarters. Just as a follow-up to that question, too, just to give you a sense of how widely this information, for example, on drought, is used. Just participating agencies within the drought community range everywhere from the USDA, including Department of Energy, Homeland Security, Department of Interior, the Corps of Engineers, and even the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So there's a wide group of people who are talking and interacting on this information.
But please get back to me a little bit more on a follow-up with that.
Our next question comes from the line of John Young. Their line is open for you now.
Hi, guys. I'm a little concerned about the impact that heavy snows the last month have had in looking like the drought is relieved in Wisconsin, because I'm not convinced that the water is actually going to go into the soil. Yet I've noticed that the precipitation indices used in the various drought monitors seem to indicate a lessening of the drought in Wisconsin, even the hydrologic drought. I just wondered if anybody had any ideas of expression of confidence in these kinds of snow reliefs for a drought.
I think that's an excellent point, John, because the soils are still frozen up in your area, and so there's really not going to be any benefit, at least from what currently exists in regard to snowpack. And a lot of that will translate to runoff and perhaps get a spike in some of the river and stream flow levels, but that doesn't necessarily doesn't help the water resources below the ground. So hopefully that's taken into consideration. But you're right. They are showing definitely improvement, especially across southern Wisconsin more recently, as well as according to the drought outlook. Pretty much all of the northwestern half of Wisconsin that they're forecasting that drought situation to improve as well.
Because earlier in the winter, of course, we had significant runoffs, which did not go into the soil, obviously, at the time. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about that. If anybody has any ideas about people I can talk to learn more about how drought indices actually perform in the wintertime, I think that would be pretty important to all of us.
Hi, John. This is Doug again. How are you doing? I would suggest, are you on the drought list where you where they talk about what's going to come up on the next drought monitor and such?
I have not been on it very often, but I'm going to get on it more.
Yeah, as a state climatologist, I strongly advise using that route to get your perceptions and facts actually into the process. And I would also suggest talking to oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name, but I'm sorry. Who's the WFO person that does the drought, John, in southwest Wisconsin?
Jeff Boyne at WFO La Crosse.
And you may know Jeff Boyne already.
Yeah, I've talked to him some before.
Yeah, he's
a very knowledgeable guy. I'll give him a call.
Thank you.
I was actually thinking about calling the drought monitor people in Nebraska to try to talk this through a little bit.
Okay. Good input.
Anyway, I guess the reason I bring it up in this discussion is simply not just my hesitancy, but also I feel like there's a lot of confusing crosstalk about whether, because the winter precip has been above normal, whether that has relieved the drought. I mean, the newspaper people just were frothing at the mouth about this, and because we had a couple big snowfalls, it was like one in December. And I'm a little concerned about whether we're really having our indices reflect what's going on down deep in the ground.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's most notable with the surface water recovery, and you're exactly right. The below the ground is where there hasn't been much.
And we'll update. Yeah, I was going to say, and we'll update this in about a month. So we'll hopefully continue this conversation and keep it real, so to speak.
Our next question comes from the line of David Martin. Their line is open.
Yes, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Dave Martin. I'm with the BIA Great Plains region up in the northern or upper Midwest. We're based out of Aberdeen, South Dakota. I'm the regional AFMO for fire management, wildland fire management. And Doug Cluck, this is, I guess, more pertaining towards you. Diane Manklager has started to correspond with you about drought situations and how that impacts wildland fire and public safety up here. And just wanted to note to you guys, this is more informational than anything else. From what we experienced in the drought of 2012, FY, physical year, state of Nebraska had 3 to 4 very large fires that were started by lightning strikes or by down power lines that burned well over 400,000 plus acres.
Yeah.
One of those fires burned up into the southwest corner of one of our reservations. In one evening, it burned out 15,000 acres on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation above White Clay, Nebraska, crossing into South Dakota. As you can see, just from that projection and where we're at in the upper Midwest, and what we cover is North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska. We have 12 Indian reservations. So from North Dakota to South Dakota and Nebraska, there's a wide array of fire danger, okay? And passing this information along to you guys, whenever we get to the severe level drought stage, which is a D2 drought stage on the drought monitor map, we're noticing that we're dry enough in the soil, or the lack of soil moisture, that lightning strikes are propagating large problematic fires for us, especially when you align that severe level drought stage, wherever it's at in the high plains or anywhere in the country, and then you basically put in a red flag warning day, high winds, high temps, low RHs, no precip on the cold front passages. When you align those red flag warning days for fire weather and you align them across severe, extreme and exceptional level drought areas, we noticed a huge jump in the impact of public safety and very, very large, costly, problematic range fires. So we're noticing that, and we're aligning those trends. And what we're trying to do through you, Doug Cluck, and the National Weather Service, we know we have high fire danger days. Okay, meteorologically, we have those problems. Okay, but when you align them to certain drought areas, impacted drought areas, at the severe level drought stage and higher into the exceptional and extreme levels, that's where thousands and thousands and thousands of acres are going to be involved. And where we have a problem, we understand fire and fire danger at the federal level because the federal agencies have wildland fire folks and organizations that understand that. Most states understand that as far as their fire organizations, but where we're seeing a problem is the public safety is the local county levels and what they don't understand. So when you guys are presenting your your actual products to the local communities, whether that be the drought monitor product, red flag warning days, high fire danger days for weather, we're trying to get all that information to the local level, county levels, because they're getting impacted by these very large fires in these high fire danger times with these high droughts. So, Doug, we're going to go ahead and between Diane Mankliger and myself and you, we're going to try to maybe exchange information on how we can get that information to those local county levels in a better way, that they can understand it.
You bet. And just to drop it, one more name is Jennifer Zeltwanger is going to be that interface with the Weather Service that is going to help immensely on that process.
Okay, I appreciate that, Doug.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments. That's something I did not know. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Next in queue, we have the line of Mary Knapp, and their line is open.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a question, but I did have a comment. Where was Richard at talking about interfacing this data with the public and producers?
I don't have that information, Mary. I'm hoping he'll contact me at doug.cluck@noaa.gov.
Because I was going to echo with Pat here in Kansas, we have quite a few of those producer meetings. In fact, in the last month, I've had about 7 and over 1,000 producers attending that. So, there's quite a bit of outreach to get this tool in their hands.
And our next question comes from the line of Terry Fleck, and their line is open.
Doug, this is Terry again in Bismarck. Say, I'd volunteer to help out with that communication stuff that was being discussed earlier. I think we're continually, with the continued consolidation of the communication structure in the Midwest and in other parts of the country, I think outreach and communication continue to be a challenge because you have large numbers of groups that have they're just not, they don't have news departments. They may not have anybody on staff that's even educated in those areas. But I spent 32 years in the business. The NAFB is one group. I just think there's some things that we could be doing there from a communications and outreach standpoint that people might not be even aware exist in some of the ag networks and so on in certain parts of the country. There's just a lot of consolidation that continues to occur, not just in radio, but in television and newspaper as well as some of the magazines and so on. So I think that's an important discussion probably to have, and I'd volunteer to help if you're willing to if you're going to have that discussion. So.
Sure. Thank you, Terry. Hey, you're with the state of North Dakota, is that right, Terry?
I am not. I'm a retired broadcaster, and I'm on the Missouri River Recovery Implementation Committee.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Oh, you are, Mr. Rick? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.